Hi there, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, an almanac of garden history, literature, and small botanical joys. I'm Jennifer Ebling, and today is June 19th. Anne Sexton, one of America's most celebrated confessional poets, wrote just 7 words that every gardener in June will understand immediately. It is June. I am tired of being brave. Tired of being brave. Think about what that means for a gardener. The planning, the dreaming, the hoping through February and March, and that long, cruel April. The work of it all, the planting, the waiting, the willing things to survive. You have been so brave, and now it is June. And the garden is beautiful. And it's finally time to stop being brave and start enjoying it. After all, that's what the garden bench is for. That's why the hammock deserves a spot by the lilacs. And that's why cafe lights and fire pits make the evening garden feel like a reward. Because it is. You've earned this. Stop being brave. Let June do what June does best. The garden is ready for you, not the working you, just you. Here's today's garden history. It was on this day in 1872 that the landscape gardener Beatrix Farrand was born in New York City into one of the most cultivated households in American society. Her aunt was the novelist Edith Wharton. But what Beatrix loved was not the drawing room. It was the outdoors. As a girl, Beatrix summered at Reef Point, the family's estate on the coast of Maine, digging native plants from the nearby woods and transplanting them into the garden, mixing the wild with the cultivated. The future was already in the gesture. In her early 20s, Beatrix studied under Charles Sprague Sargent, director of the Arnold Arboretum at Harvard. Sargent taught her that the design must fit the ground, not the other way around. She also visited the office of Frederick Law Olmsted, the great American park designer. Olmsted looked over her work and called her a dabbler. She went on to help found the very profession he worked in, gathering with 10 men in 1899 to start the American Society of Landscape Architects. But Beatrix always called herself a landscape gardener, not a landscape architect. The word gardener said what mattered to her. Plants first, maintenance always, the green living things over flat drawings. Over the next 50 years, Beatrix designed more than 200 landscapes. Her masterwork was Dumbarton Oaks in Washington, D.C., a sequence of garden rooms that move from formal terraces down through softening layers to wilder ground. It is one of the greatest gardens in American history. Beatrix married the historian Max Farrand in 1913, but when he died in 1945, she was already deep in her greatest dream, turning Reef Point, the Maine home she'd loved since childhood, into a permanent garden, herbarium, and research library she believed would outlast her. But then, in 1947, a catastrophic wildfire swept through Bar Harbor. Taxes rose, the foundation's finances collapsed, and Beatrix's application for tax exemption was denied. In 1955, at 83 years old, Beatrix dismantled Reef Point herself. She called the decision a wise move, although a very difficult one for her to propose. And she acknowledged that she arrived at the decision with both pain and distress of mind. Beatrix gave her library and archives to Berkeley. Hundreds of plants were rescued and moved to public gardens on Mount Desert Island, where some still grow today. And the doors, the windows, and the floorboards of the house itself she had salvaged and carried away to be built into whatever came next. What came next was Garland Farm. An architect fitted the salvaged pieces of Reef Point into her new rooms, so the bones of the lost house lived on in the walls of her new place. And there Beatrix did what she had always done. She designed another garden. 2 years after Reef Point was gone, she wrote, "Nothing adds more peace to these somewhat difficult days than the beauty of outdoor art." Beatrix Farrand died in 1959 at 87 years old. Today, Dumbarton Oaks still stands, and her rescued plants still bloom on Mount Desert Island. Garland Farm is also now cared for by the Beatrix Farrand Society. It was the last garden made by the woman who never stopped planting. And it was on this day in 1872 that the horticulturist Theodore Payne was born in Church Brampton, a village in Northamptonshire, England. When Theodore was 5, his father died. His mother mourned that loss for the rest of her life, but she found consolation in the garden John Payne had left behind. And that is where Theodore's love of plants began, not in a classroom, but in grief beside his mother in a garden that outlasted the man who made it. As a teen, Theodore apprenticed at one of England's finest nurseries, and at 19, he visited Kew, where one exhibit changed the direction of his life, a collection of California native plants. In 1893, Theodore arrived in America and made his way to California, where he landed a job as head gardener for the Polish actress Madame Modjeska on her estate in the Santa Ana Mountains, southeast of Los Angeles. And it was there that Theodore fell hopelessly in love with California. That first dry summer, he spent his mornings hauling water bucket by bucket from a well to keep Modjeska's roses alive. Yet on the hillsides around him, the native plants needed nothing. It was a reality that slowly crept into his thinking. In the afternoons, Theodore walked the canyons where he met the Mariposa lilies, the larkspurs, the penstemons, flowers that had lived in that dry ground long before anyone thought to carry water to them. By 1903, Theodore had his own nursery on South Broadway in Los Angeles. 3 years later, his catalog included a section devoted entirely to California wildflower seeds. He was the first nurseryman to do that. And for decades, he was largely alone in this pursuit. The trade wanted roses and lawns, English gardens, European grandeur. Yet Theodore kept growing the plants everyone else was plowing under. In 1915, Los Angeles commissioned him to plant 5 acres at Exposition Park. Theodore filled it with 200 species of California natives, arranged by region, around groves of sycamore, oak, redwood, and pine. He called it his California Wild Garden, and wrote this the day it opened. As visitors came down the main path, they felt the breath of the wild and forgot that they were almost in the heart of a big city. "Why, it's just wild," they would exclaim. This spontaneous expression was very gratifying to me, for I felt that I had really achieved my wild garden. But over the next 4 decades, Theodore watched California's wild spaces disappear faster than he could plant them back. In 1916, he wrote, "The rapidity with which the wildflowers are decreasing is almost alarming. If we do not begin to preserve them, the time will soon be here when they will become extinct and live only in history." Theodore's conservation work never faltered. He retired in 1958 And 2 years later, the Theodore Payne Foundation was established to carry his work forward. Late in 1962, at 90, Theodore climbed a hill at a nursery on the edge of Los Angeles to collect seeds of Zauschneria, the California fuchsia, a low, spreading perennial with flame-red flowers that hummingbirds can't resist. Before he left, he gave his friend Eddie a signed copy of his memoir and wrote inside a simple instruction to the foundation that carried his name: "Make the foundation a success." Theodore Payne died on May 6, 1963, in Glendale, California, at 91 years old. Today, his foundation still grows the California natives and sells wildflower seeds on the very land where his last nursery stood, encouraging people to do what Theodore preached for 7 decades: plant the plants that already grow there. In today's Unearthed Words, we hear a passage from Peter Pan by the Scottish novelist and playwright J.M. Barrie, who died on this day, June 19th, in 1937. James was 6 years old when his brother David was killed in a skating accident. Their mother never recovered, and James spent years trying to comfort her, wearing David's clothes, learning David's whistle, and trying to become the boy who would not grow up and leave her. He carried that room his whole life. James eventually settled in London, across the road from Kensington Gardens, where he walked his dog every morning and told stories to the children he met there. Those children in that garden became Neverland. The story begins, as so many of James's did, with a child in a garden. James wrote, "All children, except one, grow up. They soon know that they will grow up, and the way Wendy knew was this. One day, when she was 2 years old, she was playing in a garden, and she plucked another flower and ran it to her mother. I suppose she must have looked rather delightful, for Mrs. Darling put her hand to her heart and cried, 'Oh, why can't you remain like this forever?' This was all that passed between them on the subject, but henceforth Wendy knew that she must grow up. You always know after you are 2. 2 is the beginning of the end." James also left us with this quote, "God gave us memory that we may have roses in December." James stayed with me after I read that. A boy who learned grief before he learned to read and spent his whole life putting flowers back in people's hands. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, The Lost Words by Robert Macfarlane and Jackie Morris. We close Poetry and Literature Week with a book that began as an act of rescue. In 2007, the Oxford Junior Dictionary quietly removed 20 words from its pages. Words like dandelion, otter, bramble, and acorn. Gone. A group of writers and naturalists signed a letter asking for them back. Robert Macfarlane was one of them. So was Jackie Morris. And out of that letter, out of the shared grief of it, came The Lost Words. Together, they called the book a spell book, 20 acrostic spells, each one conjuring a word back into the world. Robert wrote each spell to be spoken aloud as an incantation. Jackie's paintings are gold-leafed, immersive, and wild. Here's the spell that Robert wrote for the willow. Oh, open up your heartwood to us, will you, willow? Show your deep within, your rough without, your water-brushing bough, your shoot your grain, your knot. We will never whisper to you, listeners, nor speak nor shout. And even if you learn to utter elder, poplar, aspen, you will never know a word of willow. For we are willow, and you are not. Today's book is about what disappears when we stop naming the living world and what comes back when someone refuses to let it go. And finally, here's something sweet to ignite the little botanic spark in your heart. It was on this day in 1867 that the Emperor Maximilian of Mexico was executed by firing squad on a bare hillside outside the city of Querétaro. He was 34 years old. But before the order was given, Maximilian asked the soldiers to aim for his heart, not his face, so that his mother could recognize him. Then he said, "Long live Mexico," and he stood still and waited. Maximilian was an Austrian archduke, the second son of the Habsburg royal family, trained not for power, but for the sea. He was a traveler, a collector, a man who read botanical literature for pleasure and pressed plant specimens between the pages of his books. His wife, Carlotta, was equally ardent, and together they filled their library with floras and landscape treatises, reading plant descriptions aloud to each other by lamplight. Before Mexico, Maximilian had built a garden on a bare limestone cliff above the Adriatic Sea near Trieste, Italy. There was almost no soil there, so Maximilian had it carted in from distant provinces and brought in rare trees from across Europe. Slowly, on rock that offered nothing but wind and salt, a forest appeared. He called it Miramare. Look at the sea. Then he sailed to Mexico and left it behind. In Mexico, Maximilian found gardens that needed no coaxing. At Cuernavaca, he discovered the Borda Gardens, an old pleasure garden of terraces and mango trees, jasmine and peacocks, where he wrote to his youngest brother, "It is like May in Italy here, all year round." These were probably the happiest days of his reign, but the empire was already unraveling. The French troops that had put him on the throne withdrew, and Maximilian was left alone. His allies fled, but he refused to. After his execution, the wife of the novelist Robert Louis Stevenson visited the Borda Gardens. The man who tended them gave her a cutting from the garden where Carlotta had lived, a climbing mock orange, Philadelphus, a shrub with small white blossoms so intensely sweet that a single branch in bloom can fill a whole garden with perfume. It's not rare or delicate, but it is tough and generous, and it roots easily from a cutting. Mrs. Stevenson carried that Philadelphus back to San Francisco, and then she gave slips to her friends. Its flowers, she wrote, were reminiscent of the ill-fated queen, Carlotta, who once breathed their perfume. Maximilian created plants and labeled them in Latin as his empire fell, sending them across the ocean to his beloved Miramare, the garden he had built from bare rock and would never see again. He was 34 years old, still tending the garden he loved in Mexico, right up until the moment he was taken away. As we close the show today, remember, there is a version of gardening that is all work, all planning, all hoping and hauling, and problem solving. And then there is this, a June evening with the cafe lights on and something blooming in every direction. You don't have to earn this moment. You already did. So find your bench, light the fire pit, pour something cold, and let the garden do what it has been trying to do all along. Bring you joy. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day.